Good morning, my dear students. Once again, welcome to our subject, that is Building Technology and Architectural Planning. Today we will discuss about the lintels and arches. In previous lecture, we discussed about what are the types of the windows, what are their uses. Okay. Now in today's lecture, we will discuss about the arches and lintels. So let's start. Lintels. So what is the lintels? Lintels means what? It is the horizontal structural member which is placed across the opening by doors, windows, etc. to support the structure over the opening is known as a lintel. Okay. This portion, wait a minute. This portion is called as a lintel. Okay. The next is the purpose of the lintel. What is the purpose or the function of the lintel? The lintel is used to support the structure over the opening like doors and windows. Okay, it just used for the support to support the structure. Also, it is usually rectangular in shape, and the width which is equal to the width of the wall, and the ends of which are built into the wall. Okay. The bearing lintel should be in minimum of the following. Bearing lintel means it is in 10 centimeter height of the lintel. It's depend on the 1/10 to 1/12 of the span of the lintel. Okay, so the next part is the classification of the lintel. So on the basic of the material, there is timber lintel, stone lintel, brick lintel, steel lintel, reinforced concrete lintel. Okay. The next slide. So we will discuss it one by one. So first one is the timber lintel. You can see here, this is the image of timber lintel here and here. Okay. So what is the timber lintel? This is the oldest type of the lintel. They are not commonly used nowadays, but except in hilly areas, okay, where the timber is cheaply available in abundance. Okay. Actually, the timber lintel is relatively costlier, susceptibility to catch fire and liable to decay. Okay, it can easily catch the fire, but it is cheaper in the hilly areas. The next is the stone lintel. The stone lintel, the use of the stone lintel is recommended only in the places where the stone is available in abundance and the structure is made of the stone masonry. Okay. The stone lintel, it is consist of a simple stone slab of greater thickness. Dressed stone lintels give good architectural appearance. Okay. The stone is very weak in tension, also it cracks if subjected to the vibratory loads. Hence the stone lintel should never be used for the opening exceeding the 1 meter span unless it is provided with the relieving arch above. Okay. The next is the brick lintel. So the brick lintel are not structurally strong and they are used only when the opening is small and loads are light. Okay. The brick lintels generally it is consist of the bricks which are normally laid one end and occasionally on each. You can see here, this is an image of the brick lintel. Okay. Mostly the depth of the brick lintel, it is varies from the 10 to 20 centimeter and it depend upon the span. It is constructed over the temporary wooden centering. Okay. Also the brick with frog, it is more suitable for the construction of lintels since the frogs form joggles when the bonded which increases the shear resistance of end joint. Okay. Such lintels is called as a joggled brick lintel. The next is the steel lintel. So what is the steel lintel? Steel lintels are provided where the opening is large and where the superimposed load is heavy. Okay. The steel lintel is consisting of the rolled steel joist embedded in the concrete, and these lintels being very costly are restricted in use for the special cases. The next is the reinforced concrete lintels. Okay. The reinforced cement concrete lintels have replaced practically all other type of lintels because of their strength, rigidity, fire resistance, economy and ease in construction. Okay. The RCC lintels are constructed usually with the concrete mix having a proportion 1:2:4 and it is reinforced with the mild steel bars. Also this can be used on any span. Its width is kept equal to the width of the wall. The depth of RCC lintel and reinforcement depend upon the span and the magnitude of loading. The next part is the merits and merits of lintels over the arches. So what are the merits of the lintels? See, the lintels do not require the more headroom, but arches require the more headroom to the span opening such as the doors and windows. Okay, the construction of the lintel is simpler than the arch construction and the skillful mason is needed for the arch construction. So that is why there is also one merit of the lintel. Then to resist the arch load, the arches require the strong support like abutment or wall, which is not required in case of lintel. Also the lintels are more stable. The special type of centering work is required for the construction of the arches, which is not the required in case of the lintel construction. Okay. For arches centering work is necessary, but it is not required for the lintel construction. The next part is the arches. What is the arches? The structure which is constructed with the help of the wedge shaped brick or stone joined together with mortar and the curve like portion over the opening to support the weight of the wall above it along with the other superimposed loads is called as an arch. See, you can see here, this is the structure of the arches. This is key, here is a pier, here is a wedge shaped brick or stones. Okay. So what is arch? It is constructed with the help of the wedge shaped bricks or the stones which is joined together with mortar and forming the curve like portion over the opening. Okay, you can see here the curve like portion over the opening to support the weight of the wall above. Okay, to support the weight of the wall above with the other superimposed loads. Okay, here are some technical terms we used for the arches. You can see here. This is rise, this portion is called as a rise, this is a key, this is called as the extrados, this part to this part is called as the haunch, this is called as the intrados, this is called as the springer line, this is called as the abutment. Okay, this part is called as the span, this is called as the screw back, this is called as the pier. Okay. Anyways, so the next part. Okay, so we will discuss it one by one. What is the intrados? So intrados means what? It is the inner curve portion of an arch is termed as intrados. You can see here. Okay, you can see here this is called as the intrados. Okay, intrados means what? The inner curve portion of an arch, it is called as the intrados. Next is extrados. Extrados means what? You can say this is called as the extrados. Extrados, that means the outer portion. Outer curve portion of an arch is termed as the extrados. Then the next is the crown. Okay, crown means what? It is the highest part of an extrados is termed as a crown. Okay, this is called as the crown because this is the highest part of the extrados. So it is called as the crown. The next portion is the key. Okay, you can see here this is called as the key. This is called as the key. So what is the key? A wedge shaped block which is fixed at the crown of the arch is called as a key. Okay, you can see this is the wedge shaped. Wait a minute. Okay, you can see here this is the wedge shaped. Okay, this is the wedge shaped block which is fixed at the crown of the arch is called as a key. And what is the soffit? Soffit is actually here is not a soffit, but what is the soffit? It is the inner surface of an arch is termed as a soffit. Okay, it is the inner surface of the arch is termed as the soffit. Okay, next is facades. You can see here Wowsers. That means the wedge-shaped masonry block. Wedge-shaped masonry block which is forming an arch is called as the Wowsers. Okay. The next is the rise. You can see here. This is rise. This portion is called as the rise. So what is the rise? It is a vertical distance between the highest points on the introdos and the springing line is termed as a rise. You can see here this is the springing line. This is the highest portion of the introdos. So between these is called as the rise. Next is the springing point. Springing point means what? The point from which, wait a minute, springing line means what? The points from which the curve of the arch starts on spring are called as the springing point. See, you can see here, this is the portion where the curve is start. Okay. So the point from which the curve of the arch start or springs are called as a springing point. Next is the springing line. This is a springing line. It is an imaginary line which is joining the springing point of both the end of an arch is called as a springing line. Okay. Okay, so the next part is the skewback. What is the skewback? It is the inclined surface of the abutment on which the arch rests is termed as a skewback. Okay, it is the inclined surface of the abutment on which the arch rests is termed as a skewback. The next is the abutment. So what is the abutment? This is called as the abutment. Abutment means what? It is an arch which is supported by the end part which is termed as abutment. Okay, it is an arch which is supported by the end part. It is termed as the abutment. Okay, the next part is the springer. So what is the springer? It is the first voicer at springing level and which is immediately adjacent to the skewback. It's called termed as a springer. This portion is called as the skewback. You can see this portion is called as a skewback. So the first voicer at springing level at which is immediately adjacent to the skewback is called as the springer. Okay, you can see this is immediately adjacent with the skewback, so it is called as the springer. Next is the pier. This is a pier. Okay, so what is the pier? It is the arch is supported by an intermediate support which is termed as a pier. Okay, it is supported by the arch. This is the arch and it is supported by the internal pier. So intermediate support which is termed as the pier. Okay. Okay, the next portion is the haunch. So what is the haunch? It is the lower half portion of an arch between the crown and skewback is termed as the haunch. Okay. Okay, sorry to disturb. The next is the haunch. Haunch means what? Wait a minute. It is okay. So the haunch means what? It is the portion between the lower up portion of an arch between the crown and skewback. It is the term at the haunch. Okay. Okay, so the next part is the introdos, springline, abutment, span, center. Okay, the all part is done here. The depth of an arch, it is a perpendicular distance between the introdos and extrodos is termed as the depth of the arch. How we find out the depth of the arch? Introdos and extrodos distance. Okay, perpendicular distance. It is called as the depth of an arch. Okay, so the next term is technical term, springer, pier, impost. Okay, so the next portion is the types of arches. Okay, before that I will discuss you one thing. What is the difference between the extrodos and introdos? So the extrados, it is the outer curve portion of an arch, and intrados is the inner curve portion of an arch. Okay. So in extrados, the masonry work can be done on extrados, whereas the intrados masonry work cannot be done at an intrados. Okay, or on intrados. Okay, the types or the classification of the arches. There are some main types of the arches which are probably used in construction practices. The first one is the brick arches, second is the stone arches, third is the flat arches, fourth is the semicircular arches, fifth is a relieving arch, sixth is a gauged arch, seventh is a corbel arch. Okay, in brick arch, rough brick arches, second is the axed brick arches. In the stone arches, there is a rubble arches and ashlar arches. Okay. So we will start with the brick arches. The classification of the brick arch is rough brick arch, axed brick arch. Okay, so we will go with the rough brick arch. First of all, what is the brick arches? These are mainly classified as the rough brick arches and axed brick arches, or the rough cut brick arches. Okay. So what is the rough brick arches? When the arches are constructed without cutting the ordinary bricks into the shape of osiers, then it is termed as a rough brick arches. Okay, it will not cut it into the shape of osiers. Okay, so that's why it's called as the rough brick arches. Such type of arches, the joints are made the wedge shaped so as to obtain the arch curve with more thickness at the extrados and less thickness at the intrados. Okay. You know that the because of the more thickness of the extrados and less thickness at the intrados, the complete view of the arch is not so good looking or beautiful. Then this type of arch is not being used for exterior brick masonry work. The next is the axed brick arches. So what is the axed brick arches? This type of arch, brick axe is not brick as is used to cut the bricks into the wedge shape. Because of cutting the brick into the wedge shape, the thickness of the joints is uniform or same along the radial line, which is not observed into the rough brick arch. Okay. Also the brick are cut to the wedge shape, are not finally dressed, and the appearances of this arch is not a good looking or the pleasant. Okay. You can see here, this is the joints of the uniform thickness due to the cutting of the brick into the wedge shape, and here is the wedge shape brick. Okay, this is key. Okay, so the next part is the stone arches. So stone arches means what? They are classified into two types based upon the workmanship. First one is the rubble arches and second one is the ashlar arches. So rubble arches means what? This type arches are constructed with the rubble stone, which are dressed by the hammer and made roughly to required shape and size of the osiers. Okay. These arches are constructed in the one arch ring up to a depth or the thickness of 380 mm. If the thickness or the depth is more than 380 mm, then the rubble stone are laid in two rings in alternate courses of the headers and the stretchers. Okay. The construction in this type of arches is weak in strength. The appearance of the arch is not so beautiful and more attractive. Okay, and this type of arch used for the small opening, rubber arches. You can see here, this is the diagram of the rubble arches. Here is a rough shape rubble stone, which is the hammer dressed, and the rough shape rubble stone in one ring arch. Okay. Here is the flat shape rubble. First one is the semicircular shape type and this one is the flat shape type. Okay. The next part is the ashlar arches. So what is the ashlar arches? When the stones are dressed completely and made them true to their proper shape, and when such stones used in construction of arches, then it is termed as the ashlar arches. Okay. Here is the fully dressed stone are set either in time or cement joints with the proper bed joints. Okay. The osiers are constructed for full thickness of the arch up to the depth or the thickness of 600 mm, and then these osiers are set in the fine cement mortar. You can see here, this is the image of the ashlar rubble stone, that is the fully dressed and true to their proper shape. next is the semicircular arch. So what is the semicircular arch? Semicircular arch means it's the center line on the springing line and the curve to obtain it like a semicircular arch. This type, the skew back is horizontal, hence the load is transferred to the abutment is completely in vertical direction. Okay, in that semicircular arch there is a segmental arch, flat arch. These are the two types. Okay, so next part is the flat arch. So what is the flat arch? In the flat arches, the angle is made by the skew back, that is 60 degree with the horizontal. Hence it makes an equilateral triangle with the introdos at the base. Okay. The introdos are actually flat, but a slight rise of camber about 1 cm to 1.5 cm per meter width of opening is given to the introdos. The next is the relieving arch. So what is the relieving arch? This type of arch is specially constructed so as to relieve the lintel from the load of masonry above it. Hence whenever a timber lintel is required to place over the wider opening, the brick relieving arch is generally constructed above the lintel. Okay, the size of the lintel due to the provision of relieving arch can be reduced. Okay, and the span of the relieving arch is the clear span of the opening plus 2 into the bearing of the existing timber lintel. This is the formula of the relieving arch. You can see here, this is the image of the relieving arch. This is the timber lintel, this is the relieving arch. You can see here relieving arch. The next part is the gauged arch. So gauged arch means what? This type of arch, the wedge shape arch is accurately prepared, and the hard bricks cannot be used in such arches because it is more difficult to cut the hard bricks to the accurate and the precise wedge shape. Okay. In case of this stonework, stones are addressed to the true wedge shape. Okay. Also sometimes the bricks are specially made in wedge shape. So these specially made bricks are termed as a rubble brick, which are directly used in arch construction. So the construction of the arch, there is a formwork in centering. So what is the construction of the arch? There is also one corbel arch is also there. So how to construct the arches? The procedure of the construction of the arches, there are the three types. The formwork of centering, the laying of the stone blocks or the brick for arches, and the removal of the formwork on centering. Okay, so the first is the formwork or centering. Okay, so the installation of centering or formwork is a temporary structure which is needed to give the support to the material used for the arches, and after gaining the required, the sufficient or appropriate strength, formwork or centering is to be removed. Okay, the centering or formwork is made up of the steel or the timber, and the timber centering is a simple and cheap and probably used for the moderate span. Okay, also it can be reused for the many times, and it is simple and easy to install. Okay. The next is the turning pieces, or next is the laying of the stone block or the brick to the arch. So the laying of the stone blocks or the bricks are done after the proper preparation and arrangement of the centering of the formwork. Then the starting from the skew back up to the crown, and voussoirs are arranged in required form along with the mortar, and the keystone is properly placed. I will show you one image related to, wait a minute. Tools, camera. Okay, you can see here. You can see this is a centering form work for the smaller span of the arch, and this is the image of the elevation and section view of the timber centering. Okay. The next part is the laying of the stone blocks or the bricks for arches. So what is the laying of the stone? The laying of the stone blocks or the bricks are done after the proper preparation and the arrangement of the centering or formwork. Okay, the starting from the skew backs up to the crown and wasses are arranged is required form along with the mortar at last, and the keystone or the key bricks is properly placed. Okay, or in the case of the washers in their beds, the turning pieces is eased by slacking the wedges in such a way that the turning pieces is lowered by a small elevation of 3 mm to 4 mm. The next is the removal of the formwork or centering. Okay, so after the getting the required and the sufficient strength to arches, the next process is to removal of the centering or the formwork. Okay, it is very risk oriented part because the removal of the centering is carried very carefully. The removal of the centering is carried by the losing of wedges for the short span. For if the span is more than the 7 meter, then the removal of the centering is done by the sandbox method for losing, so that shocks can be prevented. Okay, so this is the construction of the arch. Okay, so here our unit is completed. We will start a next unit in the next lecture. If you have any doubt regarding this lecture, please ask me on Google Classroom or ask me on our WhatsApp group. I am uploading this video on YouTube. Please in comment box give your attendance. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.